Hi, welcome to Ituc Africa Youth Camp 2014. My name is Rhoda Boaten. I work with Ituc Africa based in Togo, Lomé as the youth coordinator. As you can see, we are at a campsite here in Moshi in Kilimanjaro based in Tanzania. We are going to have 3 days of adventure. 3 days of exceptional fun, doing something we've never done before. We can see that we are used to having meetings and conference facilities that are very luxurious, so the youth decided to do something different for the first time. We are going to sleep in tents for the next 3 days, and we are going to have a magnificent 3 days of activities that's going to be fun-filled but very educative, inspirational and challenging. We're going to talk about essential skills. We're going to have training on leadership. We're going to talk about issues on tax justice. We're going to talk about issues regarding gender mainstreaming in the unions and many others. Apart from this, the youth are going to have a challenge to climb up Mountain Kilimanjaro. We are not going up to the utmost summit, but we will definitely have an experience climbing up to a part of the mountain. Youth are going to sleep in these tents you see surrounded around me. We're going to sleep in the tent, have our baths outdoors in the shower, and it's really going to be an experience. This is just to let people know that the youth are ready for change and we're ready to do things differently. We don't need to have so much money to have a workshop. We can use the little means we have to have workshops in very inspirational ways. So this 3 days is really going to be unique. People are up for the challenge. We have youth coming from all over Africa. And interestingly, for the first time, we have youth participating from global union federations. We have friends from PSI, friends from Uni Global, friends from BWI, as well as friends from NUM. We really look forward to a very good experience, and we hope that 3 days is going to come out with very good and insightful results. And how lucky are we? We are privileged to have the General Secretary of Ituc Africa joining us the first day of this meeting to speak to us on the essence of having working class consciousness. Many resource persons and experts are going to come to share with us this beautiful experience. We hope the youth are going to go back refreshed, more enlightened and rejuvenated to take up issues of trade union. The youth at the end of the day is going to come up with a declaration which we are going to send out to our unions, which we are going to send out to Africa in general on what we want. We are really excited about this youth camp and we hope you come with us. This is a very unique activity we've had. We've been trying to organize activities where we'll bring together young people for them to find ways to network first of all, for them to find ways to reflect on issues in the trade union movement and also in Africa in general. And we thought that if we had to do this to really get the interest of the youth, we had to do it in a very different way from the normal way we do things. The conventional way of trade union activities is going into a hotel somewhere, sleeping in luxurious rooms, sitting in meetings and discussing the same issues over again. We realized that this is losing impact, and if we need to attract the youth or engage the youth, we had to go to them in a way that would please them. And so we thought about this camp to try and bring the youth together, for them to do something in a very different way. And so as you can see, this camp is very unique in its way. People are sleeping in tents. We're doing a lot of activities instead of sitting in sessions for long periods. But then essentially we are discussing issues, very soft skills. We are discussing issues to encourage youth in the union. And so some of the issues we're discussing here now are how to mainstream gender to start with, because we realize that we need to change the orientation of people when we talk about gender issues. how to be an effective leader, because we realize that the youth are tomorrow's leaders and we need to train them now if we are going to be good leaders, and especially different in their leading skills from the current leadership skills that we encounter in Africa. We're also talking about the issue of tax justice, which we realize is a very important issue for Africa, because we see that Africa is losing a lot of its revenue through tax evasion. And so we're trying to find ways how we can engage the youth to take up a campaign on tax justice. And so these are all relatively important topics, but then very practical and not as technical as the usual topics that we discuss. So this is how unique this camp has been, and we hope that we are really able to get some impact.
The future belongs to the youth, and the youth need to be involved more strongly in our unions so that our unions can get renewed. Because I think the union movement is quite urgently in need of renewal. We need the kind of renewal that allows us to address more forcefully the interests of membership, directly in the workplace, in the world of work, and also in the socio-economy as a whole. And we need a youth who are vibrant, a youth who are committed, to help us renew this trade union movement in a way that allows us to bring in many more working people, so that the trade union can become a stronger force and be able to exert the necessary pressure on the policymakers to move in the direction in which our societies need to move.
Il faut dire qu'aujourd'hui, les jeunes ont un rôle très important à jouer dans le mouvement syndical. D'abord, comme on l'a dit, la jeunesse, c'est aujourd'hui l'avenir. La jeunesse est considérée aujourd'hui comme la relève. Et de ce point de vue, nous avons un rôle très important à jouer. D'abord dans la mobilisation de nos camarades jeunes, dans leur organisation, et également l'éveil de conscience des jeunes sur la lutte syndicale et sur l'idéal du mouvement syndical, de sorte à les amener à comprendre réellement qu'est-ce que le mouvement syndical, et contribuer de ce fait à une nouvelle dynamique dans le monde syndical, à la restauration des valeurs du mouvement syndical telles que la solidarité et la démocratie, entre autres, pour nous permettre vraiment d'avoir des organisations plus fortes dans les années à venir. Disons que les jeunes aujourd'hui sont confrontés à plusieurs réalités sur le terrain. Des réalités ou des obstacles inhérents à la jeunesse elle-même, mais également des obstacles qu'ils peuvent rencontrer auprès des aînés, des devanciers. Les obstacles à leur niveau, c'est quoi? C'est qu'aujourd'hui, dans la fougue de la jeunesse, l'on a tendance à vouloir aller plus vite. On veut occuper très rapidement des postes de responsabilité. On veut bousculer les aînés pour les mettre un peu à l'écart entre griffes et se faire de la place. Or, aujourd'hui, nous estimons que la jeunesse a encore beaucoup à apprendre, surtout dans le mouvement syndical. Donc, il va falloir d'abord qu'on acquiert des expériences, de l'expertise, à même maintenant de venir par la suite occuper des postes de responsabilité pour pouvoir vraiment assumer les tâches à nous confier. Donc aujourd'hui, il faut dire que en tant que jeunes, nous devons aller lentement mais sûrement vers l'occupation des postes de responsabilité. D'autres obstacles, comme je le disais, liés un peu à nos aînés, c'est qu'aujourd'hui, quand on écoute les différents discours, tout le monde est unanime aujourd'hui à reconnaître qu'il faut préparer la relève, qu'il faut mettre un accent particulier sur la jeunesse, il faut préparer les jeunes. Mais on se rend compte au même moment que tout cela reste à l'étape discours. Il n'y a jamais d'action concrète qui tend vraiment à la responsabilisation réelle de la jeunesse. Aujourd'hui, nous avons la chance d'avoir un comité des jeunes au niveau panafricain et même au niveau mondial. Mais si je me limite par exemple au niveau panafricain, il n'y a pas aujourd'hui un mécanisme de récupération par exemple des jeunes. Il y a beaucoup de jeunes aujourd'hui qui sont formés, que ce soit au niveau national, que ce soit au niveau international. Mais quel est le mécanisme aujourd'hui pour garder toujours ces jeunes-là dans le mouvement syndical une fois qu'ils auront quitté la phase de la jeunesse, c'est-à-dire après leur travail avec le comité des jeunes, que ce soit au niveau national, que ce soit au niveau panafricain, au niveau international, il n'y a pas de mécanisme. Donc ça fait qu'aujourd'hui, cela devient un frein, ça devient un obstacle à la participation réelle des jeunes dans les actions des mouvements syndicaux. Donc il va falloir maintenant essayer de trouver des mécanismes pour la récupération de ces jeunes que nous avons eu à former dans le temps, qui ont occupé des postes de responsabilité dans l'instance du comité des jeunes, pour pouvoir quand même arriver à bâtir une base très solide des jeunes ayant des expériences et des expertises requises.
The youth in general have a big role to play in trade unionism movement. If you can see currently, the world is becoming young and the industries are concentrating more on young people. So young people need to be involved in trade unionism so they can be able to be united and fighting for good working conditions, better wages, and so that they can also be developed and be better persons in life. Slowly, many countries are recognizing the role that is supposed to be played by young people within the trade union movement, but it is too slowly. Apparently, in South Africa and other countries of Africa and international countries, many countries are trying hard to make sure that they form youth structures within their trade unions. For example, we've got Ituc youth, which is very good in terms of developing the new cadre within the trade union movement. Apparently, without developing the new cadre now, which means in future the capacity within trade unions will be declining. We need to start now developing the young people, class consciousness and political consciousness, so that they can be able to take a right direction in dealing with issues of trade unions and politics in general. Let me stress out that young people always regard themselves as more educated, and for them to join trade union is not easy like in the past. They are more enlightened, so they are more individualistic instead of collective. So that's one of the first challenges that they're facing. But on the other side, the system of capitalism has not changed. They are applying the same tactics that have been used during the colonial years of Africa. So that's why youth need to be reminded about what happened in the past, what is currently happening, so that they can be able to join trade unions and participate in the trade union with only one aim of uniting the workers in the world.
Le rôle des jeunes au sein du mouvement syndical, en fait, nous avons beaucoup à faire parce qu'il y a beaucoup de choses à changer, parce qu'on est l'avenir pour nos syndicats. Oui, les jeunes ils comprennent leur importance au sein du mouvement syndical, mais c'est vraiment un combat parce qu'il y a des trucs qu'on doit comprendre, il y a des changements à faire, il y a beaucoup de choses à faire encore. Premièrement, le problème que rencontrent les jeunes, c'est la réintégration au sein du mouvement syndical. Parce que nos aînés, ils ont comme l'impression que réintégrer les jeunes au sein d'un mouvement syndical, donc c'est comme les mettre sur le banc de touche. Donc ça c'est vraiment un problème pour les jeunes. On a gagné la confiance de nos aînés et ça c'est une chose qui est vraiment importante parce qu'on est réintégré au sein d'un mouvement, au sein de nos mouvements syndicaux. Donc on a quelque chose à dire, on est concerté par nos aînés, donc c'est une bonne chose. J'en ai l'espoir parce qu'avec le temps, avant on n'avait même pas un avis à faire, mais pour le moment on a quand même, on nous concerte pour quelques décisions, pour prendre des décisions. Donc j'espère que dans le temps à venir, on aura assez de place au sein de nos mouvements syndicaux.
The large population of people are youth, so they have a play in terms of a role to play in terms of innovations. The young generation, they have good ideas. if we can tap on the ideas that are good in technology. There's also the issue of succession planning, but after some years, some will leave. After leaving, the other one will need to take the baton and continue the revolution. It's very, very important to try and infuse them in the leadership structures so that we build them up.
I believe we all know what taxes are. Basically levies that are taken from our citizens for so many purposes, for running the state, for developmental purposes and other issues. Basically generates revenue. However, the word justice also has its meaning. As trade unions, we've been fighting for justice, equality and fairness all over the world and here in Africa as well. Tax justice basically is an attempt to make sure that the revenues that are collected, first of all, the appropriate revenues are collected from all those who need to pay those levies or taxes. Then after that, we want those revenues to be used for the purposes for which they are collected. In effect, it should be used such that it will lead to certain social and economic developments that will be able to also provide basic services for people to be able to live a dignified life and have decent living conditions. I think in our normal day-to-day life, there are a lot of things we don't have control of. For instance, what goes on in our natural environment. There could be so many things that will require one to seek medical attention. And you agree with me that Africa, for instance, our health systems are not particularly very good. And resources, financial resources are needed to build the necessary infrastructure to provide adequate health services. Where health services are available, you agree with me that it is quite expensive. And the ordinary person living in any country or African country for that matter may not be able to access that quality health service at affordable prices. Secondly, you could also talk about other public services like water. You could talk about sanitation. You could also talk about energy in various forms that it comes. Now, if as human beings we need certain basic necessities to live, which is our human rights as well, and for one reason or the other those things cannot be made available, then we should all be interested in how we get these things available so that people would be able at least to live a dignified life. And that is the word. It should be a dignified life. We should not live in a society where some people are smart and able to use loopholes in our systems to dodge or evade tax or avoid paying the necessary taxes. They accumulate a lot of money, and what do we see? We see inequality, which is growing by the day, and this gets people into a certain uncomfortable situation, gets people into, let me put it, inhumane situation. We can see it all over the world. Sometimes people feel helpless, but these are things that are going on in our communities, in our society. So for the ordinary person, it is important to follow and to be interested in issues about tax justice.
Some people are very supportive when it comes to women activities, but not all the leaders are also very supportive. So women may have the ideas or the interest in pushing the trade union movement ahead, but if you don't have the leadership who have that political will in believing in the power of women, then that is where the challenge comes from. Most women also use the excuse of multiple role. They keep saying that, because of our multiple roles, we don't have the time. I keep asking myself as a young lady and as a woman for that matter, that for how long are we going to use the excuse of multiple role, just to play at the back and sit at the back? If we don't fight, nobody can fight for us. If we don't voice out our concerns, nobody can voice it out for us. We are women, so we best understand our issues. So if anybody can address it, it is us who would have to sit down and address it. It's not that we are going in there to fight over power relation with the men. All we are saying is that we want fairness. There should be that equity, that everybody should have a level ground to play his or her role well. So women, yes, depending on the leadership of the union, it's a 50-50 thing, but it doesn't mean we should give up. The chances are there. We just have to strategize and make use of it and let our voices be heard.
I think it's important for the youth to reaffirm or to reinforce the ideologies of trade unionism and the values thereof. And I think it should come somewhere in the beginning of your statement that we are still committed to the values of solidarity, social justice, etc., etc. Because that should be the starting point. And then the issue of the ideological school. I think it is important that youth takes part in the New Year school, but they should not just be tagged along. Mm-hmm. There should be spaces for youth where there is a particular ideological school where our African trade union youth participates. And in fact, that school should be sustained by our trade unions. We should not be running to foreign funders to sustain our ideologies. It should be our space as Africans to exchange and to rebuild Africa through our own ideological lens.
I would want to see what are the youth saying out of this meeting. What will they want to do, and how will they want to take the campaign forward and to work with ITUC, to work with the global unions. And also, I think this should reflect on all the paragraphs that you've done. This is what is happening for gender, the 40%, blah, blah. But the youth are coming from here. We are saying this is what we want to see being implemented. Most of the statements, they are okay, but they are lacking like strong proposal. Remember, you claim, you give you give the evidence, and then reasoning in terms of why you're claiming the evidence, and telling them if this is not done, then this will happen. And we as youth are proposing ABCD to be done. So as we said, this meeting is going to be different. It will not be business as usual. So we need to give more proposal, so that when we go to the General Council and the General Council adopts this, then the youth themselves will hold ITUC, they will hold their affiliates accountable to this. This is what we youth want to be done. Maybe budget to be allocated to youth activities so that you can be able to do ABCD. You talked around the ideology, New Year school. ITUC has a New Year school every year. How do you want some of the issues that you're talking here to be fed into the New Year school as youth? We want, when the New Year school come, we would want a special session for the youth specifically on ideology and all that the SG was talking about. So for me, I want to see more as what do you want at the end of this meeting, or what do you want your unions or ITUC to do for you?
Viva! 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 Viva!